we're going to have 2 officers going up and down my building because there's no cameras now for these people. Other buildings around the revitalization center, all of them will have cameras in each floor. Even in the recycle room, they have cameras. So they are, there's a sense of security. But in our building, we don't have that. Imagine one police or one of these CSU officers going up and down. He's going to he's going to be terrorized. He's going to say, "Oh, I need a partner to work together." What happened with the cops riding on the night shift? They have 2 teams, right? Because they're afraid. And they cost us more money. So that's the same logic. It's going to cost us more money. We need their party security instead of and they're liable to. If they fuck it up, they come out and they violate the human rights. They will fuck it up.
I'm just getting so frustrated when I harass when also schools are
No, you can stay. Not in my building, but in other buildings.
What's that?
We're not even going to have a meeting if you don't move these people from here. What is the purpose of the officer standing on the other side of the chair? Chief Chief Saunders, why are you making it antagonistic? You are. All the other officers are stood on the other side. Why does this person have to stand right here behind me? I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Chief, I didn't hear the answer.
He's coming down short.
The chief has no ability to direct you about your operations and policies as you always tell them, right? So why does an officer have to stand directly behind me? I find that very antagonistic. They don't have to stand there, they can stand on the other side of the wall. So I'm saying to you as the chief of police, it is causing me stress having these people stand directly behind me. You know full well that I always sit there, and other officers have moved to the other side and not stressed me out. So that's what I've asked you.
Is your sofa here that you requested?
Why are you asking me? You should be asking the chair that, shouldn't you? Well, they can bring it into the room, which is what was asked.
How are you?
Tony Veneziano?
Yes. How are you?
Looking forward to working with you.
Absolutely.
And if you need anything, or if you want to borrow anything in terms of stuff that I took care of, by all means, just give me a
I
call.
will, for sure. Thank you. And
You can
is it a sit anywhere?
You can sit, yeah,
No,
down on
no,
that
no.
side. I know. What?
He's driving us. Good job. Well, I watched it online actually. So make a public announcement. Why are you telling this to me? No, we are going. I didn't have it. I just, I want to hang on before it's okay.
You're weak. You are weak.
Before you disappear, if we can just finish, I want to explain to you that I went to a meeting in York Region about 2 weeks ago now, and I was greeted by the police at the door, and they said something to me about how they had heard I advertised the meeting and I was showing up, made suggestions that perhaps I was there to start it. And I was at an LPS as a week before that, and I was stopped at the door. No, Ontario Public Service, no, that meeting here in Toronto. Same thing happened. And I'm on edge because I get it. I get it. It was the other thing. Same thing. The first thing you said was cool. I'm down with the first thing you said. It was the thing about what happened at the last meeting. It was because you were. You know that. No, I'm not on Twitter. But why? I don't know. I don't. I think it's probably just and we
welcome everybody to the December 2018 board meeting. I'm sorry we're a few minutes delayed. Let me call the meeting to order properly. And I want to again acknowledge the land that we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now the home of many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples, and we acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I think we have some new board members. First of all, Mayor Tory and Councillor Nunziata, welcome back, but Councillor Ford, welcome, and we have a swearing-in ceremony for you. So if we got the swearing in. Apparently not. We have the swearing in messaging.
Georgina's gonna get it.
Move to
Michael, we'll wait for a minute because we need to get the thing that you have to read. I apologize. So as we go on here, let me just ask if there are any declarations under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Okay, hearing none. Listen, this is a special board meeting in many ways because before we begin the formal part of the board meeting, I want to acknowledge that this is the last board meeting for the board administrator, Carleen Bennett, who is an extremely valued and integral member of the board office. She's going to be retiring in January after 30 years of service. And so many of us know Carleen, both the board members present and past, but also members of the public and members of the service, because she's been the face of many of the interactions as you've gotten ready. She's organized the meetings. She's done the hard work of preparation. She's done the agendas. She's interfaced with the public about deputations and procedures. But over and above that, her role in insight and guidance in the board and 30 years of service with the service has been invaluable to me and a big help in many, many different functions. Carleen started with Records Management Unit and then moved to 32 Division, but then was hired as the staff assistant to the board office and has held successive positions there, taking over from Deirdre a couple of years ago as the board administrator. And so today we really want to honor and recognize your significant contribution. And I don't know if Joanne Campbell is here, but she was perfect. Joanne is here, and the two of you worked together so successfully to make a real contribution to the board, and it's hugely appreciated. So we wanted to recognize your contribution, but also your passion to the community and your professionalism. You've always spoken your mind. You've done it with me, and you've done it very much weighing in on important issues time after time. Your knowledge and your passion has been outstanding. And, you know, throughout the years, you focused on youth projects and the funding of youth projects, making sure they got included in the special funds. But I think you're particularly important to you was the instrumental role you played in representing the board in the innovative and groundbreaking Human Rights Project Charter, which outlined the framework of a relationship between the service, the board, and the Human Rights Commission. Project Charter was a significant milestone in many ways, leading up to the establishment of the board's comprehensive policy on human rights and accommodation and the creation of the service's human rights strategy. And there's no doubt that your energy, passion, genuine commitment to the principles of Project Charter were a huge part of its success. But you've also demonstrated your engagement constantly in other ways, your commitment to the community, both inside the service as a member of the Black Internal Support Network and the Filipino Internal Support Network, but to the greater community with your work as a volunteer at Gatehouse. So you've made an amazing contribution to this organization and to the public. You've been a hugely important member of this service in promoting the right things, as I said, the youth and the social justice, and in keeping us organized. So you've made a huge, huge contribution. We've been so fortunate to have worked with you and benefited from your input and your guidance. We're going to miss you hugely, but while we've tried to talk you out of it several times, you seem committed on this course. So you have our sincere thanks, congratulations, and I think we've got a couple of gifts for you here, and perhaps, Mr. Mayor, you'd, as a board member, be interested in Ryan and joining us as well? So, Caroline?
Sure. Thank you.
This is for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Wait. Here you go. Hold the flowers. Come on, hold the flowers. Thank you. So, congratulations again, and thank you. And this is the last meeting. It looks like it's going to be an exciting one. So, thank you.
Mr. Pringle, excuse me, it was not on the agenda that she was leaving. I'd like to say
Doesn't have to be.
thank you from the public for
I asked colleagues if you have comments. Ryan, is that something you want to add?
Yes, please. Carlene's family is here too. Everybody should know. So I first met Carlene approximately 20 years ago. I was just starting my undergraduate studies at U of T, and along with Sandy Murray, who's on the board team, but then a member of the board, I was co-chairing something called the Youth and Police Action Committee. And the committee focused its work on examining the relationship between youth and police and how to go about improving that relationship in Toronto. And I remember then that Carlene was very interested and engaged in our work and supporting what we were trying to accomplish in spirit and in fact. And somehow she looked exactly the same then as she does today. Carlene has been a member of the board office and this institution for many, many years. But as Andy said, she hasn't just been a member of the team, she has, I think, been its heart and its conscience. When the board is facing a challenging issue or it's wrestling with options, I often spend time in Carlene's office, as one of my mentors told me to do, talking things through. And sometimes her cell phone goes off, and depending on what song she's got on her ringtone, we break out into chorus, but then we get back to business. And when we do, Carlene always displays her gift for cutting through the thickness of things and the distraction of things to get to the heart of what really matters. And then the answer just seems so obvious. I have said since coming into this role that with Carlene's retirement, the board is truly losing an institution. Someone who has seen so much, experienced so much, and advised on so much. And through it all, Carlene has remained steadfast in her passion to do what is right for the service, for the board, for the community, and for Toronto. And for that, Carlene, I think everyone in this room and the residents of our great city owe you deep and heartfelt thanks. And I want to say a personal thanks to you. Carlene often talks about how important it was that a certain person in her life, earlier in her career, believed in her and gave her opportunities that allowed her to be her best self. I know that Carlene has been a big supporter of mine in this role, and I lived the experience of knowing how important it is to have your team have your back. So Carlene, thank you for believing in me. I hope I continue to make you proud. We wish you the best on your retirement and on a new chapter in your life, and please know that while our office will continue to do the work that we do and that we're all passionate about, we will miss having you by our side as we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm not going to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as much as we regret losing Carlene and the tremendous job she's doing, let me introduce Diana Hakim, who is going to try and fill the role that Carleen and has been understudying Carleen for a week or so. And Ryan, perhaps you should just introduce Diana more completely, giving a bit of a background so that people know the context that she's stepping into.
Sure. We welcome Diana to this role. Diana comes to us from a few different government operations where she spent different time as a law clerk. So she brings that skill set to the board, most recently with the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, where she supported the legal team there. Diana is engaged with Carleen in learning the job from the master, as we call her. And I have no doubt that Diana will bring her wherewithal and passion for this work as well to the board, and we welcome her.
Thank you, and welcome. Have we got the thing yet? Have we got the statement yet to be read? Have we got the swearing-in statement?
Oh, it's, no, not yet. It's on its way.
Okay, so we'll wait a minute further on that. The voting's going on here. Let me then just turn quickly to what I've done the last couple of meetings, because the last meeting was not a great result. And so let me remind people about deputations to the board. The board encourages interested members of the community to provide input on issues of importance to them. However, the board wishes to remind everybody of the following rules when making deputations to the board. Be respectful. Don't use offensive words or language. Keep your comments focused on the agenda item that you're speaking to. Comments about the conduct of a police officer or members of the Toronto Police Service or staff are not acceptable. Deputations are normally limited to 5 minutes, the time that is specified by the board in case of large agendas. At the end of the last board meeting, a deputation continued past the 5-minute limit. I asked the deputant to conclude her remarks, but the deputant continued. After providing warnings that I would adjourn the meeting if the deputant continued further, we did indeed adjourn the meeting in accordance with my duties as the chair of the board. And while the board welcomes the continued input of deputants, the board also has a process in place to ensure that it functions in an effective governance, as an effective governance body and an effective method. These processes, which include a procedural bylaw, have been established to ensure the board meetings are effective and efficient and allow for the contribution of submissions by members of the public to be in a respectful and orderly manner. Should a deputation continue in violation of the rules of bylaw, or I may rule that the deputation be concluded, and or that bring a motion to adjourn, recess, or suspend the meeting if necessary. Under the rules, a person making a deputation may not disobey a decision of the chair and must immediately withdraw where I have ruled a deputation is to be concluded. The board believes that the public consultation and input is critical to effective oversight and will continue to facilitate such input. So we appreciate your cooperation, because I think the rules are there to make it fair and equitable to everybody, and that we must really make sure that we engage in them in every respect. Now, I alluded earlier to the leeway that the board has, and in a number of areas. One of them is in the amount of time allotted to the deputations. We have a large number of deputations today and a large agenda, and so on that, the board has decided that we would, and I would put forward under section 17.4 of the board's bylaws, the time allotted to any deputation may be extended or reduced considered necessary at the discretion of the board. Given the large number of deputations today, I think we should have a motion to reduce the time from 5 minutes to 3 minutes in order to get through the entire agenda on a timely basis. So may I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Nunziata, thank you. Seconded. May I have a seconder? Mayor Tory, any discussion? If not, may I, all in favor of the motion? All in favor? Any contrary? Carried. Thank you. Listen, could we please, listen, this is a public meeting for a discussion of board business. This is not a debate with the public. Okay. Councillor, do you want to weigh in on the rules here? Jane?
Certainly, with respect to reducing the time period for deputation, it's within the board's rules to do that, and it's often done at city boards and committees as well, to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, particularly when the agenda is long and a number of deputants are registered.
Thank you.
Board has set up that this
listen, if we do not have order, we will take a recess right off the bat. But I think that what some of the questions being asked are legal, and so Jane, you from City Legal, you face these at other committees in the city. You face it at council at times. This is a public meeting, but it is to be conducted in an orderly fashion as set forward by the bylaws. Could you just confirm that again for people's benefit, and then we'll move on. Miss Renee, Miss Renee, would you please cease and desist? Otherwise, I will have to adjourn the meeting. Jane, please.
If I may answer to the first point, it's within the board's procedural bylaw that the amount of time may be reduced at the board's discretion, and as the chair has advised and the board has moved, the submission time will be reduced from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, but everyone on the list will be welcome and encouraged to speak. So there will still be public participation. It's just that the time limit has been reduced somewhat to allow everyone to have an opportunity to speak.
Do you guys like have some? Are you not here to do your jobs?
So, could we please have order in the room? Thank you. Miss Renee, listen, this meeting is proceeding as it should. If you persist, I'm going to have to stop it, and if you continue, we will have to ask you to leave. So. This is legally entitled to proceed. Thank you. The council has just.
You have many lawyers sitting at that table who will tell you otherwise, including Mayor Tory. Robert's
Jane.
Rules of Order says you must either
Listen, Dion Renee, please listen to the council one more time. After that, we will, if you persist, recess.
It's not about whether you have the right to do it, it's whether you want to hear us or not. Exactly.
If I
seem not to want to hear us. You don't want to hear us. We know you have the right. You guys can change.
Mr. Chairman, if I can answer the question.
May we listen to council's response, please? Jane?
I used to speak on the TCSUs last month. Why should I speak only 3 minutes today? I should be speaking 5 minutes.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Last month, I was registered to speak on the TCSU.
Would we have quiet in the room, please? Thank you.
5 minutes.
Jane?
If I may, Mr. Chair, with respect to the adjournment of the last meeting, I also looked at the recording, and it's my understanding that you did adjourn the meeting. I appreciate.
Make it public.
You can't just say things, you have to come with facts. This public is expecting facts from this board. This board,
Time to adjourn?
the public is expecting the board to hold
Dion, I'm sorry.
That is not an answer. We need to know where you say that on the recording, because I have a copy of it, and it's not there.
Dion, I'm sorry. We've tried to accommodate you in quite a number of ways. I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
You said that you were going to adjourn the meeting. That's what you said.
Well, I will in about 2 seconds if you're not going to.
You said that after the fact. You said you're going to have to adjourn the meeting. If I continue, then you're going to ask me to leave. So
Okay, I think we will take a short adjournment, people, a recess rather, and we'll come back in a minute. Thank you.
we sat here and waited for your return, and you did not come back. And it's not.
I'm tired of you guys.
Not proceed when you did not conclude your other meeting.
It's when they had like a 200 deputies. Oh yeah, like today. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's not there. You guys were all there. But anyone else who's wanted to observe, go to the end of the meeting, and you will see for yourself. There is no conclusion. They just walked out.
I know. There was no adjournment.
No, he just got up and walked out.
No, he said he was recessing the meeting. And that was, but that's not adjournment.
If anybody wants to find that on recording and show it to me, I'm happy to leave this room. Those facts are not there.
Mentally stable Latino. Call me the mentally unstable. Mentally unstable. Club. Emotional disturbed Latino. Emotionally disturbed. I am.
colleagues, again, if we could try and get this meeting going. Everybody, may I bring the meeting to order again? I think that hopefully the people with a breather to consider. We have rules before the committee. We've just had council explain them. We will enforce those rules. Some of those rules say that there are no signs allowed, so I'd ask you please to take those signs down, that is not part of the meeting. Please put them down. If the disruptions continue, we will ask anybody disrupting the meeting to leave. If the disruptions continue on a broad basis, as happens in other city council meetings and at city council itself, we will ask everybody to leave, clear the room, and we will hold the meeting in front of the cameras, but without members of the public present. Do we want to try and have this meeting properly, or will we? Okay. Ms. Renee, I would ask you to leave, please, because you. Ms. Renee, I've asked you to please leave. I can, and I just did.
No, because I'm not disrupting. I'm asking you to make a legal declaration here today.
Okay.
You have the archive footage. All you have to do is play it. That's it.
We will take another recess. So may I have a motion to recess, Ms. Francis Nunziata? Okay. So we will take a recess. Thank you. I've asked her to leave. Okay. We will take a recess. Thank you very much.
Integrity is everything, remember. And right now, you're not instilling confidence in this public in your integrity. You simply can pull the footage up, and you're not doing that when you can. Integrity. Instill public confidence in this board. And right now, you've demonstrated that you're not doing that.
Let's go raise some pot shops. Resign. smoke the pages. It's gonna roll a good Ty Jones. Preaching the Bible. They don't give a fuck about accommodations. They don't give a shit about accommodations. When you go to the Human Rights Tribunal, oh my God, they trumpet so much they're doing for human rights advance. It's a bunch of bullshit. Look what they're doing here. They won't do it. They won't do it. It's on YouTube. We should demand the restitution of Chip Ringo. When someone else knew. I have spoken about it for years. I said what the union said. But my former association is a fancy name. It's a fucking union. They got a lot of money. That's a luxury name for you. In my books.
think so.
Podium mic. 1 2 1 2 1 2.
So it's either or, right? So let me just test it. You're not going to flip the switch until? Yeah, until you guys are totally ready. Okay, thank you. Unplug one. 1 2 1 2. You hear it now? 1 2 1 2. Chair, do you prefer we can have one mic and then the overhead mics? Do you prefer it coming off the podium, or do you prefer it on this mobile stand?
Whichever you think is more effective.
I'm just wondering who needs to be.
Well, everybody will be talking equally around the table, so if the overhead mics pick that up.
I'm just worried that they're going to be not completely.
Then you will be able to go up and monitor, I take it. So why don't we have it on
Mrs. Patton.
this? Do that. That way, if we find the overhead mics aren't picking up enough, we can pass this around. Okay. Okay?
So I was in meltdown.
You're hearing?
And then I thought, you know what?
Yeah, it's hearing pretty good. But the ideal is
Yeah, if I'm not able to, if I'm not able to answer, because I know.
do you need any other?
One two one two one two one two one two. What about proximity to people? Do they need to speak?
have that ability unless I'm asking people to stand every time. One, two, three, four, five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Are you ready to switch? Right, Chair. We're going to have to pass
this
mic around in order to guarantee sound.
Okay.
And I can help shuttle that around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And you got to, it's got to be pointed out to you as in directional.
Okay.
If everyone could just keep in mind that the mic needs to be pointed at you to guarantee sound. And I think
Yep. Thank you very much. Welcome again to the restarted December meeting of the Toronto Police Services Board. Unfortunately, we had, after reminding everybody of the rules, we had too much disruption. Warned several times people that we would have to ask them to leave when they did not. We, in a recess, decided to reconstitute or restart the meeting without the benefit of having the public here, but because it is live streamed, it is a public meeting. It's unfortunate, I know, Mayor Tory, this is done occasionally at City Hall, and Councillor Nunziata, that you clear the room. It's unfortunate that it came to that because we had some important things to discuss today, but when unfortunately the behavior of a few prevent the meeting from occurring and proceeding in the formal fashion that gets everybody respectfully to do their presentations and make their points, and for the board colleagues to discuss openly and properly, we had to resort to this. So I hope the sound is good for everybody. And Councillor Ford, you are new. We do have the oath, and if you come forward, I will hold the mic and get you to take that, and then just read first the oath of office.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I solemnly swear that I will be loyal to Her Majesty, the Queen of Anne to Canada, and that I will uphold the Constitution of Canada, and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge my duties as a member of the Toronto Police Services Board faithfully, impartially, and according to the Police Services Act and any other act and any regulation, rule, or bylaw, so help me God.
Thank you, Councillor. And then second, if you would read the oath of secrecy.
I solemnly swear that I will not disclose any information obtained by me in the course of my duties as a member of the Toronto Police Services Board, except as I may be authorized or required by law, so help me God.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Now, Michael, if you would sign that, and I can... Thank you, colleagues. And with that constituted now, I would propose we have obviously no deputations at this time, but we do have a presentation. But I think perhaps before we do that, I think I'd go right through the agenda and ask people for if they wish to hold any items. There are, I would point out, there are a couple of written deputations which we will take as being accepted as well. Carlene, can you just identify the written ones for me when I get to it?
Item number 2.
That's the presentation.
Yeah.
Any other written?
There's the written deputation on item number Item number 1. Item number 1, confirmation of what minutes. Item number 2, there's also an additional regular deputation.
We're already holding that. So just on the first two are there written deputations. So on item number 1, the confirmation of the minutes, there is a written deputation. I'd refer you to that. If you had a chance to look at it, I'd ask for the receipt of that deputation, but the approval of the minutes. Councillor Nunziata, seconded. Mr. Jeffers, all in favor? Any contrary? Thank you. Item number 2, as I say, we hold for a presentation, and there is a written deputation. Item number 3 is the appointment of special constables. That's the one Ryan held over from last meeting. And it is, I point out, an authorization of strength to 300. It's an additional 140 from the current 160. It's not passing that number, it's just authorizing the potential of that. So, hold, okay, thank you. Item number 4 is the vendor of record, the existing contract for 2019 with VMware AirWatch software, the maintenance and professional service. Motion to approve. Mr. Jeffers, Councillor Ford, all in favor? Any contrary? Item number 5 is the clinical psychological assessments. Motion to approve. Or Upala, is that something that you wish to hold? Or okay, a motion to approve then. Ms. Santa seconded. Councillor Nunziata, all in favor? Any contrary? Item number 6 is the readjustment of the school crossing guards hourly wage. Motion to approve. Councillor Ford, seconded Ms. Santa all in favor? Any contrary? Item number 7 is the use of the board special fund for the funeral of PC Sam Sun. Motion to approve. Mr. Jeffers, seconded Ms. Santa all in favor? Any contrary? Carried, thank you. Item number 8 is the Toronto Police Service calls made to the Canada Border Service Agency. Hold, Ms. Santa thank you. Item number 9, and there is a motion to that. We'll hold that and take the motion then when we do it. Item number 10 is this is the consent agenda, and this is to receive the public minutes of the meeting number 63 of the Joint Health and Safety Committee that I co-chair, in fact. So a motion to receive. Councillor Nunziata, seconded Mayor Tory. All in favor? Any contrary? Thank you. Item number 11 to receive is the Chief's administrative review in the sexual assault complainant number 2018L. So a motion to receive. Councillor Ford, seconded Ms. Santa. All in favor? Any contrary? Thank you. Same thing, it is a second chief's review, sexual assault, complainant 2018-0. I have a motion to receive that. Mr. Jeffers, seconded Councillor Nunziata. All in favor? Any contrary? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 13 is a Chief's Administrative Review into the sexual assault allegation of complainant number 2018N. Again, motion to receive. Mayor Tory, Councillor Ford, all in favor? Any contrary? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 14 is a further Chief's administrative review or into assault, sexual assault 2018P. A motion to receive. Mr. Jeffers, seconded Councillor Nunziata. All in favor? Any contrary? Chief, I take it are we now cleaned up more or less on all these, because we had a backlog of these things. It seems to me like we should be.
Chair, we still have more to do. We are getting closer to the finish line. What I can do is advise next month where we are and what it will look like in the next couple of months to follow, if that works well with you.
Thank you. That'd be helpful, because we are in a catch-up mode, and I'd like to make sure we do get caught up as quickly as possible. Item number 15 is the Chief's Administrative Investigation into the custody injury of Mr. A.H. A motion to receive. Motion to receive, Councillor Nunziata, seconded Councillor Ford. All in favor? Any contrary? And 16 is the Chief's Administrative Investigation into vehicle injury to Mrs. Lanloken. Motion to receive. Councillor Nunziata, Mr. Jeffers, all in favor? Any contrary? On the walk-ons, request for board special funds, this is item number 17. Request to use board special fund for the new Canadian citizenship ceremony, and this is a motion to approve. Ms. Santa Cruzera, seconded. Councillor Ford, all in favor? Any contrary? Item number 18 is the Internal Police Services Board 2019 meeting schedule. Motion to approve. Ms. Santa Cruzera, Councillor Nunziata, all in favor? Any contrary? I just wanted you to make sure you were okay with the agenda. This is the formal, this is the deputation to receive the appointments, reappointments actually of Mayor Tory, Councillor Nunziata, and the appointment of Councillor Ford. So we've already administered the oath, and that's a motion to receive. Ms. Santa Cruzera, seconded by Mr. Jeffers. All in favor? Any contrary? No, Francis, sorry. Nice try. And item number 20 is the Amendment 2019 Capital Operating Budget Process. A motion to approve that. Mr. Jeffers, Councillor Nunziata, all in favor? Any contrary? So there's a couple of things held, but I think the first thing we need to do is ask Natisha Massakoy and our board member Upala Shantagrasera to talk about the anti-racism advisory panel and give us an update. And this is the first of a quarterly report. So Upala, do you want to come here and Natisha, sorry, do you want to come here and take my chair? I'm happy to stand and have a seat. Thank you in advance for all the work you've done.
Thank you, and thank you for an opportunity to present to the board. This report is our first quarterly report of the ARAP, and the report that you have details what has happened in the first two meetings and the foundational basis that we've created in order to meet our mandate. The first meeting focused on having the members learn about what each is bringing to the table from both the community side as well as the service side. And our second meeting really focused on the key concepts that we needed to ground ourselves in terms of working on a common ground in our understanding of anti-Black racism, mental health and addictions, racism and mental health as they intersect, and racism and policing. We also looked at an overview of the relevant units and initiatives of the TPS, including the Professional Standards Unit, Diversity and Inclusion, the Aboriginal Peacekeeping Unit, and a number of mental health and addictions services and initiatives. The work of the ARAP is focused on the establishment of a monitoring framework that you've mandated us to provide that to the board, and the assessing and response to the implementation of each of the LOCU inquest recommendations directed by the police board and the services, including the creation of key benchmarks and performance indicators addressing each of those recommendations. With this panel, we've established what we believe is a group of people from the community with a wide range of experiences, backgrounds, expertise, and knowledge. And these are the perspectives and lenses we need to proceed with this important work. We believe we have the expertise at the table, both internally from the service as well as external experts. However, our work does not happen in a vacuum, and this is a very significant time for the city as well as the province, as we know. And this type of work and the kinds of critical conversations that we hope to raise, we believe will lead to transformative action and change that the service is asking for. So as you know, last Monday, the Ontario Human Rights Commission released its interim report into the inquiry concerning racial discrimination and racial profiling of Black persons by the Toronto Police Service. This is an extremely critical report that requires very thoughtful and significant consideration, not only by the ARAP as you've directed, but by the board and the service as well. And as part of its statement responding to the interim report, the board stated that it will refer its existing policy concerning data collection to its anti-racism advisory panel, comprised of board members, community members, experts, and service members, and ask for recommendations to improve the policy. This work will consider the legitimate concerns surrounding the impact of race-based data collection on interactions between police and members of Toronto's communities, particularly Toronto's Black communities, and look to collect this data in a manner that will strengthen our connections to the communities that we serve. So we take this direction very seriously, and we think it's the right direction to take. ARAP understands that this work is important, it's urgent, and we also understand that developing good policy for the board to consider requires a very thoughtful, mindful approach. And we are committed to working quickly to identify areas where the existing board policy can be improved and align its recommendations to the board for improving the policy with best practices in the areas of race-based data collection. Our panel is fortunate to have a membership that will permit the board to tap into the leading expertise in this area and leverage the most recent and leading work that has been done as well in this area. Our panel intends to conduct this important work over the next several months and come back to the board after that work is completed with a recommendation for a complete policy. Central to the work of the panel is the importance of incorporating the lived experiences of members of our Black communities, and many of us come from those communities, work with, and are part of these communities. And including this perspective, I think, is an imperative to the meaningful and comprehensive review of this policy and other related and important issues. I think we can't ignore the fact that we have heard from Black communities with regards to issues of policing for close to 40 years in the city. There are other relevant reports and ongoing work in this regard that our panel will look to in the course of this work. Last December, most notably, Toronto City Council adopted the Toronto Action Plan to confront anti-Black racism, which I think is a seminal document and a seminal moment for this city. At its October meeting, the board referred this report to our panel to inform our work in considering possible disparities in services and outcomes for racialized persons, as well as the intersectionality of mental health and race. We've already begun a dialogue with members of the City of Toronto's Confronting Anti-Black Racism unit on the Toronto Action Plan to confront anti-Black racism, and this is a dialogue we intend to continue in the year ahead as we focus on our work plan. And the partnership that we need to build and fortify to meet our objectives most effectively is one with this unit, and we take direction from an action plan that has already been implemented by the city. In addition, we've also tied our work to the province's anti-racism directorate's mandate. And in terms of reference, it is stated that the work of our panel will be informed by the province's Anti-Racism Act and the related strategy, A Better Way Forward, Ontario's 3-year anti-racism strategic plan, and other governance and guiding documents as appropriate. But we think the province's plan is also one that is shaping the work that we will be doing, and we've already initiated that dialogue prior to the establishment of ARAP. I think it's very important to understand that the Ontario Human Rights Commission report is something that we will take seriously. It will be another guiding document and report, along with the ones that we've already established are crucial to our work. And we will be looking at the recommendations very seriously and incorporating them into our work, but also acknowledging that there is a plan that the city has in place, as well as the province, that will all influence the work that we have in store for us over the next few months.
Thank you so much, Ms. Massaquoi. I just want to express again how much confidence I have in the ability of this panel. There's some amazing experts on this panel and really committed service members. We have 2 deputy chiefs on this panel as well, and some strong commitment to move this work forward. And I just really want to thank the panel too, because the first couple of meetings have been really amazing. I also want to reiterate the board's support for the work of this panel, especially our commitment to race-based data collection. Both the panel and the board have given very serious consideration to the Ontario Human Rights Commission's report, and we recognize the urgency of these issues. And given this, we have prepared a motion to take some immediate action, and I want to move this motion forward. And I ask that Mr. Teschner read the motion out. It's quite lengthy.
This is the motion. The board is committed to using the collection of race-based data to promote evidence-based policymaking and organizational change, including in monitoring systemic racial and other disparities to identify gaps, eliminate barriers, and advance the fair treatment of every member of the public. The board currently has a policy entitled Collection, Use, and Reporting of Demographic Statistics, approved in October 2007 and subsequently amended in 2010 and 2011, which permits the Chief of Police to collect race-based data from members of the public, analyze this data, and report this data publicly. However, this policy has not been operationalized by the service. The board approved a motion at its meeting of October 26, 2017, in which the Chief was directed to provide a report that includes past recommendations referencing the collection of race-based statistics and a description of the Chief's strategy for implementing those recommendations. The Toronto Police Service currently collects and publicly reports on race-based data pursuant to its obligation under Ontario Regulation 58/16, collection of identifying information in certain circumstances. In April 2018, the Government of Ontario published its data standards for the identification and monitoring of systemic racism, which permits the collection of race-based data, among other types, by provincial public sector organizations. There are no data standards for the collection of race-based data that apply to municipal organizations such as the board, and the Ontario Human Rights Commission has not published specific data standards concerning the collection and public reporting of race-based data by police services, and the Board views it as essential that its collection, use, and reporting of demographic statistics policy be amended to capture more current standards and best practices related to the collection, analysis, and public reporting of race-based data. Therefore, the Board directs that 1. The Board refer its existing collection, use, and reporting of demographic statistics policy to the Board's Anti-Racism Advisory Panel to be reviewed, with recommendations made for amendments to the Board based on a consideration of current standards and best practices related to the collection, analysis, and public reporting of race-based data in a policing context, as it relates to the police's dealings with members of the public. Number 2, the Chief continue to engage with ARAP's work through the existing representation and participation of service members on ARAP, so that perspectives of an operational nature can be shared and considered during the development of revisions to the policy. 3, ARAP report back to the Board with a recommended updated policy for Board consideration by no later than the Board's May 2019 meeting. And 4, the Board requests the Ontario Human Rights Commission to provide a presentation to ARAP concerning best practices it has identified for the collection of race-based data by police services, including any challenges associated with collecting and publishing race-based data arising from various types of policing interactions, and recommendations for addressing those challenges in a manner that balances the law enforcement function police must provide with the importance of building community trust.
Thank you. Ufla, do you want to, you're moving that? May I have a seconder? Mayor Tory, all in favor? Any contrary? Carried, and thank you. Let me just also draw your attention to the deputation that's been made and amended by, or attended to by the Human Rights Commission. I would also just echo the work, as you can see from the motion. The Board is committed to moving forward with this on a timely basis in every way. I just want to compliment Natisha and Upala, you, for the leadership on the ARAP committee. I think you've taken it from inception to where it is, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and hearing the recommendations of the output. Are there any further discussions? Okay.
Two questions. One on clarification. With the objective of this of ARAP and what you're hoping to achieve and will achieve, I'm sure, are you going to be looking at some of the past, as the OHRC has stated that there were a number of studies done in the past, with the commission? And are you going to be looking at the barriers of implementation in the past? Because a number of these studies have been done, as we all know, and because there's a degree of cynicism about implementation, as we've experienced, time and time again, are you going to be looking at how we approach and improve on the implementation of these recommendations that have been made in the past?
Thanks for raising that, Mr. Jeffers. For sure, I think it was intentional in the way we formed this panel. That there are about, I think, 7 or 8 police service members on the panel. So the whole idea of this panel is to come up with a practical solution that works with the organizational structure and processes of the Toronto Police Service. So we will look to the police service members on the panel to tell us what are the implementation barriers, what do we need to work through. So I think there'll be lots of open discussion about how do we move some of these items very practically through the service. Do you want to add to that?
I agree with what has been said. I also had the privilege of going through this process with the city's race-based data committee when we were developing the strategy, and having the service present made us develop indicators that were very realistic. So things that actually could be implemented, understanding what some of the challenges would be. There's no point in asking for things to be put forward where it can't realistically be put forward. That's not what's going to help us move forward. So we have to get to step one, which is, okay, we know what the barriers are. How do we overcome those things effectively when we're working collaboratively together? One of the strategies is having a panel that is working effectively with the system, not against the system.
Yeah, the exercise is good for you at your age. Okay.
Thank you. You know, I noticed you mentioned that you'll be working with the city as you know, on their initiatives around anti-black racism, etc. And provincially, is the OHRC the only agency or body in the province that you would be working with? What about the anti-racism directorate and that sort of thing? I mean, does that?
So we've already met with the directorate and started looking at that process. And so their framework framed the development of our panel. So we've already initiated the work of the directorate.
So this is going to be an ongoing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Colleagues, other questions? Oh, Ken's room.
Yeah. I noticed that in the consultation, the Black Liaison, I call it consultative committee, is involved, and that's very good to know. And, you know, because the views and perspective of some of the black officers, for example, in their experience with anti-black racism, both internally and externally, I think would be really significant as well, because I know that just anecdotally, some of them have stated, well, you know, we need to be, nobody asked us and consult with us over the years. So I'm hoping that that would be part of your work.
Just to emphasize that we have membership on the panel currently, just to ensure that that voice is front and center in the work that we're doing. Yeah.
Any other questions, colleagues? If not, again, let me, Upla and Letitia, thank you both very much for all the work that you've done. I think as a board, we take this extraordinarily seriously, and it is a top priority. So we look forward to working with you and making sure that we get the best possible input to inform the service moving forward. Thank you. With that, colleagues, may I have a motion to, this is item number 2, to receive the deputation and to receive the submission. You've already passed the motion, so we passed the motion, but I haven't asked for a deputation to receive the written deputation. And okay, so Nunziata, seconded by Mr. Jeffers. All in favor? Any contrary? Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for all your help. So that is number 2. The next one is item number 3, and Upala, you wish to hold this. This is the special constables at the CMHC.
Thank you. I just had a question, whether the Toronto Community Housing Corporation's board had had this discussion at their table, at their public meeting, and whether this was a motion made by their board, because that wasn't clear in the report.
Yes, thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Chair. This is a discussion we have had a number of times, led by our CEO and, of course, Mr. Anderson, who is here. Of course, our community safety has always been top of mind for the board at Toronto Community Housing. From my knowledge, it has never come to board for approval. But it has come in front of the board a number of times to comment on, and the corporation has been very transparent in the direction they are moving with special constables. And in terms of, I know we have a pilot that is going to be ongoing in 10 of our sites. So it's definitely been in front of the board, and we have don't have an issue with it.
I just have a question to the chief. In the report, the second page, where it says request for service and investigations relating to events on or near TCHC properties. So just clarification, that's near is referring to within their property, or is it within the community where Toronto Community Housing is located?
Well, I'm sure I have the resources to get deeper, but it's with respect to all of the responsibilities that are possessed on TCHC. And so if there's a nexus that has any type of direct or indirect control by TCHC, then they have the ability of acting within that capacity. But it certainly is not anything that's going to go outside of the scope or responsibility of TCHC. That this is not about stretching out or broadening any responsibilities or accountabilities. I don't know if that helps clarify. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Santa Crucera, are there any other questions or discussion on this item? If not, may I have a motion to receive the deputation and the report? Councillor Ford, seconded Councillor Nunziata. All in favor? Any contrary? It's carried. Thank you. Item, yeah, it says receive here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm approving a motion to approve, not receive. So Councillor Ford, Councillor Nunziata, all in favor. Any contrary? Thank you. Carried. That takes us to number 3. I think. Yes. I'm sorry. Number 8, and again, it's Ms. Santa Crucera. You wanted to hold that. This is the calls made to Toronto Border Services.
So I think just looking at the heart of the issue is a discrepancy in numbers and what the service has reported versus what the CBSA has reported in terms of the numbers. So I just wanted for us to clarify, does the service call the CBSA for a status check or call the CBSA where no criminal offense has been committed, and what does that look like? What are the circumstances under which the service would call CBSA for non-criminal reasons?
Thank you for that question. First of all, we want to define status check. Our definition of TPS is different than the CBSA. Anytime we call for a status check within the TPS is relating to a criminal or ongoing criminal matter, such as arrested a person or engage in a criminal investigation, whether it's singular or large scale. CBSA, anytime we call them to access the service, they will put it down as a status check. So that's a huge difference. So aside from our criminal investigation or arrest, when we call the CBSA, we have a lot of different occurrences what we call the CBSA, such as a citizen approaching a police officer inquiring the assistance from CBSA, such as a refugee claimant, such as extending a passport, such as a lost passport. We will call CBSA, and they will create on their system a status check. I want to keep in mind that the Toronto Police Service and the CBSA has different tracking system. We track criminal occurrences only, where someone's arrested or there's an ongoing criminal investigation, and that's why there's a gap between our numbers and the CBSA numbers. And I have engaged with the CBSA for the last 6 months dealing with this issue, and this is a phenomenon, it's not, or a reality that are facing major police services across Canada, where the tracking systems are different, the police service and the CBSA. Moving forward, we are going to enter into agreement to work with their legal departments and ours to look at a tracking system that could mirror or be somewhat similar to each other. And where CBSA has already given their undertaking that they'll be sharing their numbers with the Toronto Police Service on a quarterly basis. Internally, what are we going to do? We are going to publish a routine order in Q1 of 2019, reminding our officers the obligations, engaging in CBSA checks. There will be a component on the in-service training every officer must attend each year, so to remind them of that, of the CBSA responsibility as a police officer for the Toronto Police Service. And we are going to look at partnering with CBSA, and there are meetings already in place that in the coming months that we'll be sitting down together and work out a system, because I want to remind everyone here, we have two different tracking systems, two different agencies. Our systems don't speak to each other. So that's why there's a huge gap. We hope to narrow those gaps and report back to the board in the coming months.
That's great. I'm really happy to hear that you're working with CBSA to try to clarify the discrepancy in numbers, because I think the other big piece is about reporting that to the board and to the public, because clearly there are a lot of concerns in the community about, you know, what's going on behind the numbers. And just to share, I know this is a concern for people in the mental health and addiction sector. We know that people who've been apprehended under the Mental Health Act who do not have status, because of their encounters with police, they have been deported and have faced set challenges. And actually the Schizophrenia Society of Ontario has documented this, and they released a report a few years ago. So I'm pleased to hear that you will be reporting back to the board. Do we need a motion to that effect so that we know when? I know you said quarterly, so that we're clear when it will come back to the board?
Thank you for those points that were presented, and I think a couple of things that need to be expressed. First and foremost, we understand the sensitivity and the impact that this particular discussion has when it comes to police and community. When we talk about don't ask, don't tell, there is nothing in our training that is supportive in any way, shape, or form for our frontline officers to be stopping people and asking what their status is. And anytime we see anything along those lines, it is counter to the training that we've provided to our frontline people. That's number one. Number two, when you speak to the apprehension piece under the Mental Health Act, that has changed substantially over the past years with the introduction of Versadex. And prior to the Versadex introduction, anyone that was ever apprehended in the forums, the question was asked if you're a Canadian citizen, yes or no. And you could not complete the form until that question was asked, and that's what caused the very point that you have asked. That no longer exists, and it has not for years, and it will remain that way. But as the deputy has stated, we are working with CBSA. It is going to be ongoing. It is a national issue and a national concern right now, and we're going to be very overt with making sure that we get it right. The numbers really are not accurate, because what represents one call from the Toronto Police Service, whether it be administrative or criminal, we can't delineate that, and that causes a lot of confusion. But number two, because we're dealing with a different agency with different measuring mechanisms and responsibilities, one phone call can produce up to 8, 9 status checks within their system. So there are a magnitude of things that we're looking at to try to clarify so that on the go forward we get this right and it's a lot more transparent and explanative to the community as a whole.
Thank you, Chief. So I don't think we need a motion. It is a quarterly update, is that right? And it's recorded as a direction to the Chief. So thank you for that and for that clarification, Deputy. With that, may I have any more questions on this item of CBS? If not, may I have a motion to receive the report? Ms. Santa Cruzera? Seconded, Mr. Jeffers. All in favor? Any contrary? That brings us to item number 9, the inquest death of Quasi-Skeen Peters, the verdict and recommendations of the jury. And there is a motion before on that.
The motion just says that the chief provide a report at the February 2019 board meeting informing the board of the services review and implementation of the jury's recommendations. So it's coming in February anyways, but there's a motion that the chief provide a report to the February 2019 board meeting informing the board of the services review and implementation of the jury's recommendations.
Colleagues, Chief?
Thank you. What I would like to do is have a stronger review to look at what was put in the report to you. I think that there may be a little bit of interpretation that might have altered certain nuances, and definitely look forward to presenting whatever implementation pieces are. But I don't want to, at this point in time, I'm not comfortable with saying that there will be implementations to everything that is put here. So if you could give me an opportunity for clarification to present to the board, followed with a discussion that would lead to implementations which would be necessary, I think that that would be of great assistance.
So we're, okay. That the chief provide a report to the February 2019 board meeting informing the board of the services review and possible implementation of the jurors' recommendations.
Colleagues, any questions, discussion further on that? If not, may I have a motion to adopt the motion and receive the report? Councillor Ford, seconded Councillor Nunziata. All in favor? Any contrary? That concludes the agenda. Is there any other business? If not, Ryan, we're talking about putting out a statement shortly about the board meeting. When will that come out? Sometime this afternoon. So, colleagues, is there any other business that anybody wishes to bring before the board? If not, I'm sorry? I'm coming to that. To everybody, hearing no other business, it just remains for me to wish you all a very, very happy holiday and a great 2019. And thank you very much. We'll see you in the new year. Thank you for your assistance in this, Kevin.